Hi everyone, and welcome to this video. I'm here with my beautiful wife today, Zoe, and we're going to talk a little bit about our relationship and how we got together. We've been married for just on 9 years now. We had our wedding anniversary last week, and we want to tell you a little bit about how we got together, why we got together, and especially just focusing on 5 critical aspects or focus areas of our relationship, what we call our courtship time pre-marriage. So Zoe and I actually knew each other since prep, grade 1.
Primary school.
So I was in grade 1 and Zoe started at my primary school, and so we always knew each other, knew of each other.
Yeah.
But we were kind of in similar circles almost, but we really didn't become close friends until Zoe came into my church when you were how old?
Probably about 22.
23,
yeah.
You gave your life. Tell us a bit about that.
So I grew up in a Christian home, and throughout my teenage years, didn't really have a very strong relationship with God, so it was quite confusing for me. But when I became about 21, I recommitted my life to God at a Franklin Graham crusade, bless that man and his father, and started attending a church nearby, which was a Southern Lights church, and an outreach of our church here at Skye. And after a few years of attending church there, we came over here, and Caleb and I became good friends.
Yeah, it was great. It was actually awesome because I was the youth pastor at that time, and you came in and you really had a heart for teenagers and got involved in the youth ministry with me. And I think that's a phenomenal key if you're going to marry someone, is do ministry together, get close with each other spiritually, see what each other's heart for God is, learn and grow in those skills of leadership, serving your local church. And that was the thing that attracted me the most to Zoe. Like Solomon in the Song of Solomon, he sees the Shulamite woman in chapter 1 working hard in the field, and it grabs his attention. And I saw you laying down your life for God, loving people more than yourself, so keen to grow as a Christian, and that was one of the most beautiful things about you. But I always had that in my heart. I always wanted a wife that would love Jesus more than me and just would want to lay her life down completely for God and wouldn't want to be distracted by anything. And I saw that in you. I knew that I wouldn't be number one. I knew that Jesus would always be one, and I knew that you wouldn't marry unless it was going to be for destiny. So
Yeah, that's right. And that's funny because that's the same reason that I was attracted to you. Because, I saw your passion for God, and I thought, this guy might be able to keep up with me. He might actually be able to push me further than what I might be able to go on my own. And my biggest thing before getting married, I remember saying to God, Lord, I don't want to get married if it means it could compromise my call or slow me down in all the wonderful things that you have planned for my life to influence people and to help people and extend your kingdom. But then there's you, and you love God, and you were passionate, and you were devoted, and you didn't compromise. You spoke the truth, and lives would change all around you. Young people getting transformed, and and you were just someone I really admired and I respected, and I could just see that, your love for God would always come first, and that's what I wanted.
it's good. And I think one of the most important things is you got to know why you want to be in a relationship as a Christian. You got to know.
Yeah.
I always say to young people, you got to know where you're going or who you are, where you're going, and then thirdly, you can look at who can come with you. And I think we did that fairly well. We both knew ourselves well in Christ, our identity. We had a good sense in our 20s of where we were going with God and what we were called to.
That's right.
And then I know for me, I've found it a lot easier to therefore see you as someone who could come with me, and me as someone who could go with you, because I was secure. I didn't want to get married because I was lonely. I didn't want to get married because I was unsure what to do, and you knew what to do. I think having that security is really important. And then I know that allowed us early in our relationship to really understand and be clear on why we were together, what the meaning of a godly marriage was, and therefore that dictated our relationship, not necessarily feelings or hopes and dreams or codependency or wanting to have sex or get physically involved. Like, well, I think we had things in the right order.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I know early we were friends. We were really good friends for a long time. So as we do this video, I'll try and touch on what we believe are the 5 key focus areas that any godly relationship should have. If you want it to be a successful godly relationship and really achieve the purpose of marriage, which is to marry for destiny. Mm-hmm. It's about, in Zoe, I wasn't looking for a soulmate. I was looking for a helpmate. Mm-hmm. I got a soulmate, I got a best friend, but I was looking for a helpmate like Adam and Eve in the garden, someone to help me with destiny and someone that I could lay down my life for to help her in her destiny and our destiny together.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things is that we were great friends.
Yeah, we were.
And we had about 2 years of really solid friendship, and I think that's critical. Like for a young guy, to have some really healthy female friendships and guys and a good group of friends around, but especially with the opposite sex, building some good, solid, healthy, not inappropriate friendships.
Yeah. And
then out of that group of ladies, Zoe just came to the fore, and she was just the one, and we just not only got on well, but there was a spiritual connection. And I definitely remember thinking, I can't imagine her marrying someone else, and if she did, like, I would be sad and hang on a second, like, this is the girl I'm meant to be with. And I was a little bit slow on the uptake with that, which many people make fun of me for. But I think the thing is, I got there in the end. But that friendship part is just so important. And then out of that, I went to Zoe had a pastor that acted like a bit of a father figure, and I went to him along with her own dad, biological dad. And I went through them to get to Zoe, which is a critical part of courtship. I didn't just corner Zoe or ask her out. I went to those that she saw as a covering, a leader and father figures, and I asked them what they thought, and I put it before them. I put my neck on the chopping block, so to speak, and took the risk. I didn't try to do anything behind closed doors or manipulate Zoe or take her away and isolate her. And that was great. As much as it was really, really scary, I appreciated the fact that there was men there that I had to man up to and put my feelings on the line and take the risk that I could be rejected. And I had no guarantees that Zoe even liked me. I didn't even know if she liked me in that way. And yeah.
And it was good. It took me, I think I waited 5 days, and I prayed and I fasted during that time, and really consulted God whether Caleb was the right man for me, for my call and for my destiny, and if it was God's will that we come together and have the one assignment together. And it was an easy decision because I knew him so well. He was my best friend. We'd ministered together, we'd travelled on ministry trips together, we'd been good friends. He'd already met my family and I'd met his family, and we'd hung out with similar friends, and so we've been very much appropriately involved in each other's lives. In a great, healthy way. So it's quite easy to.
And I think one of the best things is that we didn't cross any of those boundaries. And I always say to people, we were very close and good friends, but there was a lot of conversations we didn't have until we're in a relationship. Where I think that's often a hard temptation, because you do get close and you enjoy when you're single, you enjoy the boy-girl thing, but to show that restraint, to not then ask deeper things about you, your heart, your past, and to go into areas that would be more of an area for a father figure or for a husband. I think we did that well, and thank God, because we could have messed it up. We could have missed each other if we'd gone into those illegal spaces prematurely.
We could have compromised what God wanted to actually do between us if we'd done it in our own timing, in our own strength, or according to our own way. So I'm really glad we didn't.
Once I spoke to your pastor and dad and whatever, and then you spent that time with God, and it killed me for a week waiting.
which I enjoyed a tiny bit.
It was really good for me though, because I was like so keen, but like it was just great to not just get what I wanted immediately.
Yeah.
And I had to suffer the pain a bit, which was good. It made it all really real, and it made me value you, because you weren't easy to get and you weren't just falling over in front of me. You were like really considering this, and it was just great. But then we went into the relationship and we started, and I suppose the most important thing was to have an agreement about what we were doing and why we were doing it. And very early in the relationship, we're actually with a team down in Tasmania ministering together, and we'd only been together for a week or two. And I had a vision of two pathways, like in the sky, in space, me on one and Zoe on the other, and the two pathways coming together and meeting and then becoming one pathway. And then you had the scripture from 2 Kings.
Yep. And we were ministering, and Caleb was sharing about this vision and about us coming together and God's purpose for us in our lives. And the scripture from 2 Kings just dropped into my heart from God, and that's really where Jehu says to Jehonadab, "Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord." And I just knew in that moment that that's what we wanted to do in each other's life. It wasn't any self-serving purpose. Yes, you're going to enjoy being together and being married, and all the blessings that come from God when you're in accurate covenant together and family and all that. But it really was for me to see his zeal, for him to see mine, and for me to be able to show that to him and for him to show that to me. And that was really our primary purpose, is to bring our zeal for God together and do something incredible on this earth for our King.
So the first part of our relationship, and there's a few focus areas we'll touch on, but we call this foundations. And so once we're in the relationship, and I asked Zoe to be in a relationship with me, and she'd agreed, and we kicked it all off. And one of the first things we did is actually drew up a little bit of an agreement, which was really valuable.
Well, we went jet skiing, and then we drew up an agreement.
Jet skiing. Oh yeah, that was my birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And then we drew up a bit of an agreement because we wanted mentors and fathers, what we call like a council of wisdom, to come around our relationship. And so we just put down some dot points of what we wanted our relationship to look like, what we wanted it to say to the world, how we wanted it to represent God. We showed that to this council of wisdom, and they gave us some feedback and added some things. It had some practical things in there even about how much time we'd spend together and whatever. We were really keen to build the relationship properly from the ground up, and not just to jump into full-on, lovey-dovey stuff and physical stuff and just cut everyone else out and we're just together every night. But we wanted it to build at a good rate, a wise rate, that it was, built on the rock and it was built well. And so the agreement was great because it actually helped us thrash out what we were doing and why we were doing it.
Yep.
And I think Zoe and I had a really good sense of the purpose of marriage is for destiny. So it was about achieving our God-given calling, and that we were helpmates to support each other in doing that. And I think that was a real key framing for our relationship, which then allowed us to build it really well. So. And then the foundations part really was about meeting each other's friends and family. We already had a bit of a connection, but even moving wider than that, putting into each other's worlds and friends and things, not just putting into one another. And I think we actually spent less time together once our relationship started.
Yeah. We wanted to have a good level of restraint in there. We didn't want to have just access to one another all the time. We wanted to make sure that we were building our relationship from the very, very beginning well.
Yeah.
And that means it has to be deliberate, and you can't rush anything. You want everything to be thought out. So we got a lot of counsel, we got a lot of wisdom from people that have done successful relationships, that know God well, that have been married and understand what marriage is actually like. Because we hadn't done this before. We hadn't met our future partner on the way to marriage and done the relationship successfully before. I'd been in relationships in the past, and you'd had a relationship in the past, and they didn't work out maybe as well as they could have, particularly for me. So we really wanted to make sure that we were doing this accurately and with godly wisdom. The foundations part of our relationships at the start, where we're getting to know each other a little bit more, each other's families a little bit more. I also found that I got to know God in a new way as well. I got to know him that little bit more, and it wasn't just about me getting to know you and your family and be a part of your world. As much as I did do that, I was also, I grew in relationship with God in the same way, in a deeper way. I understood Him better. I heard His heart for me more. And I also grew in relationship with my own dad, which was great. He was actually in Antarctica at the time, so a lot of it was via email, but that was okay. And I also grew in relationship with my pastor at the time, Danny, and he was wonderful, and I really had the opportunity to draw the Father out of him. And he covered me, and he spoke through things with me about Caleb, about getting married. We went and did things together. I remember jumping on the back of his Harley at the time. We went for a ride and went and had coffee and just bonded, because it wasn't just about me being with you. It was about me being fathered well and really trusting first Danny and my own dad as well, and God with my heart before I gave it away to another person. I've been building this relationship with my dad and with my pastor for quite a while, for a long time. It wasn't a big jump into this place, but it was crucial for me in order to be able to give my heart to Caleb eventually and be fully known by Caleb and be a great wife. I really had to trust my father and the fathers in my life. So that was
what I loved about that is that the foundation, early part of our relationship, it kind of laid out the challenge for me. The adventure for me was kind of laid out. And if you were just like latched on to me and you were just, great, I got a boyfriend now, and I was already a pastor at this point, and Zoe could have just come with me on what I was doing in ministry, but you didn't. And so the adventure for me was really laid out. It was like, I'm going to have to go and win this lady's heart. She'd given me a little bit. She'd let me into a relationship with her, but she wasn't just throwing herself at me by any means. And not only did I have to win her heart, but I had to win your pastor's heart, your dad's heart.
Yeah.
I had to show them that I was a man worthy of taking on the responsibility of you and of us and our future. And I absolutely loved that. And I think a true man of God relishes that adventure and that fight. A man does, that's for sure. Where boys can't do this courtship stuff. Those fully grown boys that are, they don't want the risk, they don't want the challenge, they want guarantees.
Yeah.
They marry a mother, or they marry a floozy who's just going to do whatever they say, and I didn't want that. I mean, Zoe was doing her PhD, she was leading in the church, I could have been intimidated by you, but it was a challenge, and I think that was the best bit about Foundations. We weren't physically involved, emotionally we weren't particularly deep at that point. We didn't focus on those things, because they will come later if the relationship panned out, but we really focused on each other's important people, family, friends, and I think we did the Foundations part. It moved pretty quick, but we did it really thoroughly, and we were very blessed that we'd built a really healthy brother-sister relationship before that. If we didn't have that, it would have been slow and hard, but we already had built such a healthy brother-sister, partner in destiny type relationship before.